Hello, everybody. Sorry, I'm AKA Heather Joy, and this is the Lifeboat. Welcome, everybody. Huh. It's been a day, guys. Wow, it's been a busy day. The wind is blowing really fiercely here right now, and that always mucks up our internet. Right now, I'm on the house internet. If that goes out, I will have to jump to Verizon, but Verizon's been way worse than the house stuff today. So I'm just hoping and praying that we don't have any more issues because I've had a lot today. But anyway, I apologize. I had to make this an hour later than usual. Um, I had a rough weekend, guys. It was a rough weekend, and so I've had to try to play catch up with a lot of things today. And I had one of the things I had to do today was get one of my hens over to the vet, and the only vet in our valley that treats chickens is about 40-minute drive away, and they close at 6, and so I had to get there and back. So I apologize for making this so late, but I'm here. I'm ready to go. Hey, so I want to talk about habits today. How to create good habits, how to break the bad ones, and I want to start off by giving you just a basic definition of what a habit is. The dictionary I looked this one up in was a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. And I'd say that's a good definition of an addiction as well, as far as it's hard to give up, isn't it? Uh, let's see. Anyway, let me continue. Especially one, oh wait, oh okay, here I am. Or it is an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely, what did I write there? I can't read what I even wrote. What was my note here? Involuntary. Okay, sorry. So it's also an acquired mode of behavior that has become nearly or completely involuntary. And again, yeah, that's a good definition of an addiction, I think. Anyway, next I want to talk a little bit about how habits are created, and this can work for good or bad. Okay. Well, first of all, I found some really good information, and this one happens to come from an article that I found titled 7 Steps to Developing a New Habit, and it's by a gentleman named Brian Tracy. Now, this guy is the top guy for sales training and personal success. He's kind of the authority. He's written over about 60 books and 500 plus audio or video learning programs that he's done. I mean, he knows what he's talking about. And he's also written this book. I've never heard of it before, but I guess it's a big deal. It's called The Psychology of Achievement. So I trust what this guy is saying. And also it goes along with what I have always learned in psychology and just personal experience as well. So the first thing that he talks about is how long does it take to create a habit, and he says here that the speed of creating a new habit is largely determined by the intensity of the emotion that accompanies a decision to begin acting in a particular way. So, if you want to start a new habit, you know, it's going to, the shorter amount of time it's going to take to create that to where it becomes, ingrained and involuntary. It depends on how intense the emotion you have that goes with that decision. And he gives an example. He says, he gives the example of somebody. Boy, I need to slow down here. Okay. He talks about, as an example, someone who has been overweight for years, and they have, set a goal over and over again about, changing their diet, eating properly, putting in some time at the gym, or, some kind of a physical exercise. They've done that over and over, but never really gotten there. Okay. And then you go to the doctor, say this has been going on for years. You go to the doctor after all this time, and your doctor, looks at your labs, and he looks maybe at your heart, your heart EKG readout, anything like that. But you go to the doctor, you've been overweight for all this time, you've been eating badly. The doctor event, sooner or later is going to say, hey, you're going to die. You're going to die if you don't change your ways. And, sometimes that can be enough to, to force you to make the decision. If that hits you really hard where, I don't want to die, that might be enough emotion behind the decision to change, to actually, to make a new habit. This could also be, for, maybe quitting smoking or quitting drinking or using drugs. A lot of times with addictions, we all know the destructiveness that it can do on our bodies. A lot of times that's not enough, and we all know that. But that I'm just going, right now I'm just telling you what he's telling everybody about habits. Okay. And this, when somebody, when you have something that scares you enough that you really want to make a decision, to make a new habit or replace a bad habit with a new habit, something like that. Psychologists refer to that as a significant emotional experience. It's just what they call it. Okay, and what that means, any experience of intense joy or pain combined with a behavior that can create a habit that may be set for life. Now, he gives examples of this, like, remember when you're a little kid, I'm sure almost all little kids, have that experience of reaching out and touching a hot stove. Immediately you pull your hand back and you've learned your lesson. You don't do it again, that would be an example of a significant emotional experience. Okay. Another one would be, let's see. Well, anything that's going to give you, a shock or, an immense pain, anything like that. That's a split second, but that habit, lasts a lifetime. So, it can be any amount of time. Some habits are going to take just a little bit of time before you have them ingrained. Others are going to take a lot longer. But when behaviors become automatic, that's really advantageous. When like, say, I was thinking about this, driving to work, every day. That's something you do almost every day. It becomes automatic. And I hate, have you ever driven somewhere and you get there and you realize you don't have any memory of driving there? That's a little scary, I think, but that's definitely, an example of where you have a habit that is so ingrained that you don't even have to think about it. And that's really advantageous because it doesn't require conscious thought or conscious effort to go through with it. So ideally that those are, if it's a good habit and it's, something that's automatic, that's ideal. Um, but how long does it really take, to develop a habit? I was looking more at this. Now, most people, I've heard for, ever since I was just little, that if you do something every day for 14 days, then it becomes a habit. That was just always the rule of thumb I remember going by when I was a kid, but according to the experts, it's about 21 days to create a new habit. Um, but this would be anything that is of medium complexity. Habits that are more complex or difficult to fit into your lifestyle, they're going to take a longer period of time to create them. And some things can take a year or even years. That's why I think sobriety sometimes is so hard. It's so hard at first to sustain your sobriety, with any addiction. Um, and what do I mean by a medium level of complexity? This would be something like getting up early, like, setting yourself a goal of getting up an hour early every day. Or maybe you want to say you want to do something that's going to be constructive and teach you something, maybe making it a habit of listening to a podcast while you're driving in your car. That would be another example of a medium complexity type of a habit. Being on time, um, let's see, or planning every day in advance. All of these things are, are medium complexity. But, I was thinking, as far as, overcoming an addiction and maintaining your sobriety, those are definitely things that are very complex. The reasons why we become addicts in the first place are rather complex. So anything dealing with addiction, this is going to take some time. It's going to take, extra effort. So I want to give you guys everything that I have found today, about creating new habits. Now, this gentleman that I told you about, this guy, Brian Tracy, um, he gives 7 steps to to develop a new habit. Now, the first one is basically make the decision. So as addicts, when you reach your rock bottom, and you just cannot take living that addictive lifestyle another day, you make that decision. I'm doing something about it. Okay. Um, but you have to decide that you're going to act in a specific way 100% of the time. Now, I know from personal experience that if I don't write it down, then it's basically, it didn't even exist in the end for me. I have got to write it down, and I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something about putting a pen to paper that reinforces it in my head. And so anytime I want to set a goal, I've always got a pen and paper, because I'm going to write down that decision, and then I'm going to start mapping out how I'm going to accomplish it. But that is the first thing, is to make that decision. And this is me. This is just Heather, but write it down. Okay. Uh, you know, an example of this would be, say you want to get up early every day and exercise. So, you need to set an alarm. You need to immediately get up after that alarm goes off and put on your workout clothes and begin your workout. I mean, that's, those are just steps that you need to take to, to do one goal. So if you can map out those little things, like, setting the alarm immediately, getting up, getting dressed in your workout clothes and doing it. I mean, you've got to be consistent, but that's an example. And I honestly, again, from personal experience, if you schedule this into your day, and I don't mean just consciously scheduling it, but writing it down, scheduling, especially at the beginning of your sobriety, scheduling out your days, not giving yourself any extra time. You've got to stay busy. It's really key. And it also helps rewire your brain too when you are scheduling things out. The second step is you never allow an exception. Okay, never allow an exception to get in the way of this new habit you're trying to create. Okay, now that's a hard one. And I know when I first started running and first started working out at the gym, I was really good at coming up with all kinds of excuses, justifications, rationalizations for why I didn't have to get up and do those things, So, you can't make excuses. You can't rationalize. You can't justify. It's going to take a serious amount of self-discipline. And that's something I think I will touch on my next live stream is self-discipline. I am a big fan of Jocko Willing. Hey, you, take that out for a second. What is Jocko's last name? Is it Willing? Willing. Okay, yeah. Jocko Willing. big fan of that guy. Okay, I think that's what I'm going to touch on. I've talked about it before, but I think we all need to we need to be reminded of what it takes to use self-discipline. And everybody that's new too hasn't heard that. So I think I'll do that tomorrow. Okay. But anyway, not letting anything else get in the way of the new habit you're trying to create, that's the key, for the second step. Now, the third step, you've got to tell other people. Now, as addicts, I have to say right here that, when you tell other people, you want to tell people that are going to be your authentic friends, your true friends. Because if you're trying to accomplish something, you're trying to create a new habit, especially, if you're trying to be sober, you don't want to tell your friends that you usually go out and party with, because they're not going to support you. They're going to try and talk you out of your new goal. So first, let me just say, you've got to make sure that who you're telling, that they're going to back you up. Okay. And the reason why it's so important to tell people is it goes into human behavior. And it's basically, it's much easier if you tell someone, this is what I'm going to be doing. I've got this goal. I don't want to drink anymore. If you tell them, then they're going to be watching you. And because up here that you are now being watched, there's a much higher chance that you're going to keep going with trying to form this new habit. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but that's exactly why that step has been put there. Okay, now the fourth one I think is really important. The fourth one is you need to visualize your new habit. Okay. And he talked in this article a lot about if you visualize yourself acting as if you already have that new behavior in place, okay, let's see if I wrote down here, this puts your decision and the new behavior into your subconscious. And that's really important, because until you get things into your subconscious as well, it's going to be really hard to sustain that. So visualizing is really important. And I was taught this when I was just a little kid. If I had a goal, first of all, I write down the goal. And then I have to envision in my head me actually going out and doing it. But the best way to do that is to picture yourself. If you say you want to quit drinking, put yourself in a situation in your head where you might be tempted to drink, and then visualize yourself, you know, doing your new habit, which would be, leaving that place, or, refusing to drink, or, I hope that's making sense. But, visualize it in your head, any kind of situation where you might be tempted, put yourself in your mind in that situation, and then see yourself, you know, maintaining the new goal, the new habit that you're trying to sustain. See yourself in your head actually doing that. That's a really important one. Like I said again, because it's going to put it into your subconscious, and that's really important. Now, the fifth step is to create an affirmation about this. What do I mean by that? An affirmation, at least for me, I do this a lot of times when I'm running. If there's something that I'm trying to accomplish, I'll put it in just like one sentence, and then with each step that I take while I'm running, I repeat one of the words of an affirmation in my mind. Say, gosh, I'm trying to think of. Okay, I know one. That I'm still trying to make this a habit, and I've done a really poor job of it. But I need to make it a habit. When every time I go out running, when I get back, I need to stretch. I need to roll out, stretch, everything, lengthen out the muscles that have been working, because it's really helpful in your recovery. And so if I'm going out running, I have this affirmation in my mind: when I'm finished, I'm going to stretch out. It sounds kind of silly, but I swear this helps if I do it this. And so I need to do this in my head tomorrow when I go running. I need, with every step that I hit, I'll do this for maybe 5-10 minutes at a time, where I just repeat those words. With each step, I repeat one word of the affirmation. Okay, that's one way of doing it. But holding, repeating an affirmation is very helpful. Another place that you can do that would be repeating it during a meditation. If you're doing just a silent meditation where you're just trying to, bring some peace and some silence into your head, it's really hard to do that. But if you've got this goal, set that affirmation and repeat that in your mind over and over. I've also found, for those of you who pray, if you pray about that affirmation, for some reason, I find that can be very powerful. But you want to repeat that, in your head over and over. Okay, it's just kind of reinforcing what you're trying to do. Let's see. So and another the example that this guy gave in his article was just again going back to maybe a goal of getting up at 6 a.m. and exercising. The affirmation would be, just telling yourself over and over again: as soon as that alarm goes off, I'm up. It's just something really simple, but repeating that in your head really reinforces that. The sixth one that he gives is you have to have a resolve to be persistent. Okay, if you want that new behavior, what you want is for that new behavior to become very comfortable when you're doing it, to where it becomes almost automatic or even automatic. And that one takes time. You want it to become automatic. You want, and what I didn't finish was, you know, if you want this habit to become so comfortable when you're doing it, that not doing it becomes uncomfortable. And I know for me that, again, running for me, uh, I try to go every other day, because if I don't, my fibromyalgia pain gets really ugly. And um, when I'm in a, you know, when I've kept my running schedule up for, you know, weeks at a time, and then I have to miss one day, it drives me crazy. Or, you know, another example of this was when I was first trying to get into running. I had really bad running form, and I experienced a lot of little injuries. So I'd have to go to physical therapy. And, you know, when the physical therapist or your doctor says, you got to cut it out for a week, and it drives you crazy that you can't go run, that's when you know, you successfully made that a habit. I know that I experienced that a lot. Um, the other things that I was thinking of, you know, just to give you examples, were, you know, every night before I go to bed, I take the majority of my medications and supplements. Uh, and I can't go to sleep. I just can't go to sleep if I haven't taken my pills. You know, if I'm really, really tired, I might forget because I fall asleep before I even think about it. But most of the time, you know, I can't, if I lay down and I haven't, I have to get right back up. It's just become a habit. Um, Prayer and daily prayer is another one. You know, I have to do it. It's a habit for me. And it becomes very uncomfortable when I realize I missed, like, you know, I try to pray several times throughout the day. You know, for some reason I realize I've forgotten it. It's very upsetting. But most of the time I find that if something gets in the way of that next prayer time, I it's very uncomfortable. So, you know, just trying to give you some examples. uh, Now, the seventh one I think is really, really important. The seventh step in creating a new habit is to reward yourself. You know, uh, if you know, if any of you that have taken psychology have, you know, that positive reinforcement for any behavior is the strongest kind of reinforcement. That so if you reward yourself for doing something, you know, it's going to reinforce that behavior. Uh, let's see. You see, oh, I okay. What was interesting is I was reading in this article that if you are reinforcing, you know, a positive step, you know, in creating a goal, pretty soon you begin to unconsciously associate the pleasure of that reward with the actual behavior. Now, we all know that that happens in a bad way with addiction, but it can be very powerful, you know, for good things. Let's see. It was kind of funny. It said to set up your own force field of positive consequences that you unconsciously you can. Okay, sorry, I need to slow down. Okay, if you set up what they call your own force field, you know, of this these positive consequences, you know, for this behavior you're trying to create, it will you will start to unconsciously look forward to engaging in that new behavior. So, you know, right there, that can, I think that can show you right there how important rewarding yourself in a healthy way is. Sorry, I need a drink here. Let's see. Now, he did mention in this article that the general machinery that your brain uses to create both good and bad habits, they work the same, pretty much. Um, sorry, I'm just trying to read what I have written here. Um, I can't read my own writing, sorry. But I want to kind of go into, let's talk about breaking some bad habits. I want to give you some suggestions here. Um, Now we know, as addicts, the reason why that behavior of drinking or participating in a certain kind of behavior, or drinking or ingesting a type of drug, anything like that, it becomes an addiction because of the dopamine release that you get in the pleasure centers in your brain. That's, yeah, that's why, and because that pleasure center is activated, it becomes a very powerful reason to keep going back. Your brain will tell you, hey, I like that, and it'll send you back and back and back over and over again. We've all experienced that. Those of you that are, well, most of you that are here, we've all experienced that. And anything, like that's pleasurable, like overeating, smoking, drinking, gambling, drugs, alcohol, any of those things. um Okay, but let me back up to where I was saying, the general machinery that your brain uses to create habits, whether they're good or bad habits, are the same. But the important difference here is that the pleasure-based, the any of the pleasure-based things that release, that huge amount of dopamine, that stimulates those pleasure centers in your brain, those habits are much harder to break, much harder. That dopamine release, creates cravings, like I said, that send you back over and over again. That's the biggest difference between a good and a bad habit. If that bad habit, triggers that pleasure center in your brain, then there you go. Now, um, there's another gentleman I really like, this guy. His name's Dr. Russell Poldruck, and he's a psychologist at the University of Texas, I believe in Austin. And I've studied many things written by this guy over time, and I've always been impressed with them. So I'm gonna share with you what, some of the tips he gives to maybe breaking some of those bad habits. Um, and he talks, first of all, about that dopamine release. And I want to read you what, exactly what he said. He said, regarding the your dopamine release, it says, this explains why some people crave drugs even if the drug no longer makes them feel particular, sorry, I can't read my own writing. Even if they make you feel particularly, sorry, if let me just start over. Okay, this explains why some people crave drugs, even if the drug no longer makes them feel particularly good once they take it. Now, boy, as addicts, haven't we all experienced that? At first, it makes you feel good. Nothing ever makes you feel good as the first time, but it can get to the point where you're just taking it just to get normal. It's not giving you that good feeling anymore. But you are still pushed, your brain is still pushing you. You're still having those cravings. And he explains, part of our brains work against us, in this way. When we're trying to overcome bad habits, these routines have become, whatever the bad habit is, whatever your addiction is, it becomes so hardwired into your brain. And and it's because your brain's sorry, your pleasure center in your brain is stimulated. That's why it's so hard to resist. But he does give some good news here. He said humans are much better than any other animal at changing and orienting our behavior towards long-term goals or long-term benefits. Okay. uh, but then he said, but however, um, okay, I didn't. Oh, wait. Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, research shows evidence that. Wait, is this where I want to go with that? Um, let's see. I see where. I'm sorry, I skipped something, guys. Okay, now it makes sense. Okay, self-control is like a muscle. Okay, once you've exerted some self-control, like a muscle, it gets tired. So, if you have put a lot of willpower in, say say you like to drink and you have made it, you're trying to create a new habit of not drinking, just the willpower that it takes not to drink, will like a muscle can be, you can be temporarily drained, so that the next time you're faced with wanting to start drinking again is going to be difficult. Okay, and that is something I'm sure we've all experienced as well. Where you can be strong so many times, and then all of a sudden you find you just can't, and you relapse. That happens quite often. Okay, and I hate to give everybody bad news like that, but you need to understand that this happens. Okay, but there's a doctor, what was his name, Baumeister. Okay, what was his first name? I wrote it down here somewhere. Anyway, there's another gentleman that I was looking at his research, and what his research showed was there was evidence that regularly practicing different types of self-control, like sitting up straight, which I need to do, like sitting up straight or keeping a food diary. Okay, doing things like that can strengthen your resolve. Um, these are self-control types of activities. Okay, and I wrote down one of his quotes. He said, we found that you can improve your self-control by doing exercises over time. Any regular act of self-control will gradually exercise your muscle, your muscle, and make it and make you stronger. So, even if so say you've made that decision that you don't want to drink anymore, and you use a lot of self-control, a lot of self-will not to drink, and you do that a few times, and then you find, like I said, you're tired, you just can't, and you relapse, which happens. But if you don't dwell on that, you pick yourself up and continue along with with that goal. You keep practicing that over and over and over, and you got to be consistent. But over time, you do get stronger. And guys, I've managed to stay sober for 15 years now, and this is very true. It takes practice, and you have to continue to do it. But over time, you do get stronger. I can go sometimes for, weeks, maybe a month at a time, without even thinking about my drug of choice, which was prescription opiates. Um, I, sorry, I'm just trying to decide if I want to continue down that line of thinking, and maybe I won't. I've already embarrassed myself plenty here. Anyway, it does take time. And he also, the same doctor that I got that quote from, he said, there's not one size fits all as far as trying to break a bad habit. But that is one thing you need to remember. Whatever habit you are trying, whatever your bad habits you're trying to break, there's no one way. Some things will work for some people, some things won't work. Okay. But as far as techniques, you need to focus on becoming more aware of your unhealthy habits. First of all, that is one way of doing it. And I always thought, who was I listening to? I think it was, if I believe it was one of my trainers, my physical fitness trainers one time was telling me about this, that if you're trying to change, you make a positive change with your diet, say for instance, because if you're a runner and and you're strength training like I do, you've got to eat well. You've got to eat the right kinds of foods in the right amounts. You've got to really cut down on bad stuff, processed foods and highly refined carbohydrates, like white flour, sugar, all these things that are really not good for you. You really have to, if you want to make a change from eating all those things, like I said, becoming aware of those negative habits are really important. And my trainer was telling me to keep a food diary. So everything that goes into your mouth, just write it down. Write down when and the amounts. She said you'll be shocked at the end of the day. If you consistently do that all day, you'll be shocked at how how much crap you've been putting in your mouth. And it's very true. That definitely brought it into perspective. So I was thinking, as addicts, we can do the same thing. If you keep, we're always pushing, Tommy and I are both always pushing journaling for so many reasons, guys. But if you can keep a journal, say of, say you haven't found sobriety yet, but you've made the decision that you want to change, but if you are still in your active addiction, making yourself more aware, is going to help. And how to do that would be basically the same thing. Maybe keep track of the time that goes into whatever you have to do so that you have your drug of choice. Maybe, sometimes those things take a great deal of time. Maybe just recording the amounts of time you spend thinking about it, or, actively doing something, so that you always have that, your alcohol or your drugs or whatever. Keeping track of maybe the number of times a day that you are using. Or a good one, I think, that really opens a lot of people's eyes is how much money are you spending on it? That one can be huge right there. If you realize how much money you are actually spending, basically wasting on a really bad habit, that's very eye-opening, and that will help you become very aware of what your bad habits are. So, that was one of the techniques that was talked about. But you can't stop right there. You can't just become aware of the bad habits. Then you need to come up with a strategy. You need to develop some kind of plan of attack that's going to help you combat that. And, the best, again, I think one of the best ways is scheduling. Honestly, what when you're just trying to get sober, it really is. This helps with rewiring your brain too. And I know I've covered this before, but keeping a schedule, um, you know, make a schedule from the time you get up to the time you go to bed. Schedule every single hour or even half hour, whatever's going to work for you, but you want to stay busy. Another technique that a lot of psychologists suggest are trying to replace these bad habits with good habits. And like I said, it doesn't work for everybody. Again, none of these techniques work for everybody, but you want to try to replace good things with these bad behaviors that you've been engaging in, and scheduling really can help with that. So, schedule, every hour of your day, know what you're going to be doing and stick to it. I know this is not easy, but the more you do it over and over and over again, the more you are rewiring your brain. And if you're sticking to, at this hour I do this hour I do this, it's going to reinforce everything. And, don't forget that if you are able to, first make a schedule and then stick to your schedule, do something to reward yourself, because that right there too is going to reinforce it, positively reinforce it. So just something to think about. The next one that is suggested is, again, visualization. And it's suggested, visualize yourself. And I've already repeated this, before while I was explaining other things. But again, visualize yourself in a tempting situation and visualize how you're going to handle that to get yourself out of that situation without giving in to your addiction. I know it's not easy. And again, this doesn't work for everybody, but it does work for some people. Let's see what else have I got here. Okay, then another thing that they go over is another thing that makes breaking bad habits so difficult is that you're trying to replace a habit, the first learned habit, you're trying to replace that first habit with the second one. Okay, and the problem here is that first behavior that you've learned is always going to be there. You can't get rid of it. It's in your head. That's why addiction is so difficult to overcome. It's always going to be there. So you need to do something. So whatever the habit is that you're trying to replace that bad habit with, you need to do something that's going to really reinforce it. You've got to make that, stronger than that first learned behavior. Basically, you want to strengthen the new one, that new behavior, and suppress the old one. And just an example, I know for me, doing these live streams is hugely positive for me, and this really is replacing some bad behaviors with some good ones, but it also suppresses that first behavior, my addiction. That was, how I had learned to deal with things, that, and that's what I'm trying to replace. Doing these live streams, and especially when I talk about how bad things were for me, and what a horrible predicament I was in, thinking about the wake of destruction that I left everywhere that I went, remembering those for me suppresses those bad behaviors. I do not ever want to go back to that addiction, ever. And even though I'm 15 years into my sobriety, there's always the possibility of failing and going back. It's always there, and I have to stay on top of it. I have to remind myself. And so honestly, doing these live streams for me is huge, because it's a new behavior that is hopefully suppressing the bad one. Anyway, I was looking through some another psychologist suggestions, and they were, let's see, first of all, avoid tempting situations. It's really important to keep yourself, if there were certain friends that you hung around and certain places that you went, or certain rituals you did, or certain, things that you did every time you took your drug, or, had your alcohol, or whatever, they become, the people or the places, because they become very familiar. You want to avoid those at all costs, really, because it's surprising how tempting it becomes when you find yourself back in that same situation again. And again, I just keep seeing it over and over again everywhere that I looked. You want to replace those unhealthy behaviors with healthy ones. You want to prepare mentally. And what they mean by that, again, we were just talking about that, was preparing mentally is visualizing yourself doing the behavior that you want to make a habit, and also writing it down, writing how you're going. If you set that goal, write it down, and write down your plan of attack. How are you going to do it? And then scheduling that into your day. Those are all mental preparation for that, replacing, that unhealthy addiction with something really positive. Another one is to enlist support. And, that's exactly another thing that we do. We try to get everyone to get 5 people, a list of 5 people, so that when you start to feel a little squirrely, you start to think about another drink, or, another dose of your drug. If you call somebody on, call number one. No, number one's not there, call number two. If number two isn't answering, go to number three. But, enlist the support of other people. And that's why in AA and NA, they, people have sponsors, because those sponsors have a little bit more experience and a little more time, being sober under their belt, and they can help you, and they can give you suggestions. They also know exactly where you're coming from, so they're excellent people to talk to. And a lot of times, just talking is going to get you out of that squirrely sensation you have in your brain. And another thing, the light bulb. Everybody that's here listening to me right now, here's another, great behavior, and you get a lot of support here. The things that Tommy and I are presenting are hopefully are helpful. And again, I want to say that again, reward yourself for the small steps that you make, because you really want to positively reinforce that. And honestly, celebrate your sobriety, especially if you made it one day. Do something to celebrate. A week, celebrate that. And that's why those sobriety birthdays are so important. You really need to, positively reinforce what you've done. It's very helpful. I guess, yeah, that's about all I have in my notes, and I hope that might give you guys some ideas, how to create some new habits that are going to be better than these old habits of addiction that you want to break. I just want to look here and see who all is in chat. Oops, and it just disappeared. Oh, here it is. Okay, we've got Miss Fee, Charles McClellan, Hobotographer, Charlie Mullen, Cindy, Scooby, Dion Russell. I don't know them, but that's awesome. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here, Dion. Let's see, Jennifer Rice, the seventh son. Who else here? Ultra Mega T, welcome. Let's see. Who have I missed? Sorry, guys. I hope I haven't missed anyone, but I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being here, even though it was an hour later. I really appreciate you guys coming. And I will be back tomorrow for sure. And I think I'm going to be talking about self-discipline. Because I am a huge fan of Jocko Willink, and he's the master at that, guys. But anyway, I hope you guys all have a great night. Reach out if you're having a hard time. Reach out. And I'm sure that Charlie has put in the link, where you can contact me, or you can contact Tommy. And everybody that is regularly in chat and that you see regularly on Facebook too, everybody is just awesome. This is such a good place to get support and to get some love and some helpful ideas. This is just, there's nothing like the boat anywhere that I've ever seen, and I'm really glad I found it. Anyway, you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow night.